Well, so let's I guess gently tiptoe into it,
Okay.
because I'll start by saying that in getting ready for this interview, I had kind of a different direction that we were maybe going to go, because I have been fascinated by these arguments around like the 6 or 7 infamous passages in the Bible that mention homosexuality.
The clobber passages.
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
and there is such a push, a movement to
Mhm.
sort of explain those away as, it doesn't actually mean men who have sex with men. In
Mhm.
the ancient languages, it actually referred to something else. And honestly, I kind of went back through those so that we could talk about them,
Okay.
and none of them were compelling to me, like, whatsoever, and I didn't wanna waste any more of our time with them
Okay.
tonight. So, I guess the reason I'm bringing all this up is to just ask you, should we care? Like, is it shitty for atheists to just shrug off that ambiguity and let ancient poetry lie? Or should we be invested in how, potentially billions of people interpret what their God has to say
Yeah.
about, the value and the rights of 20% of us?
I would say that we should care in so much as it impacts the actions of others towards that community and giving them compelling art. I'll share a little story actually.
Yeah,
So
please.
there's a book called On Clobber and the author's name is Colby. I can't remember Colby's last name. He's going to hate me because I actually know Colby. But I had a discussion with him and he is a Christian. And his purpose in writing this book was to explain to other Christians, and I'm kind of on this team, like that you can still hold your beliefs without holding on to bigoted beliefs, without being a bigot, without negatively impacting other people. You can accept that that is the case. That's the way God made people and basically like leave them alone, incorporate them into the church even. Like I think
Mhm.
that that is, ideally I don't think that that's necessary, but given the alternative, I think that that's a wonderful thing, right? And so much so do I care that there's somebody in our life who is in the church, who's very deep in the church, means a great deal to him,
Mhm.
and he's having a difficult time reconciling some of the stances that he's discovering in his church about people who are, gay and lesbians and trans. And he wants to start changing the minds of the people in that church. So we sent him that book. We're not going to, nor are we interested in, actively attempting to deconvert this person, but this will
Can we
get this will
declaw him a little bit?
no, or even aren't what I'm thinking too is that he wants to do good work within that church to change the paradigm so that the people
Yeah.
within that church are no longer holding bigoted positions. Like they would still hold on to their religion, in all likelihood, but they wouldn't hold bigoted positions anymore. And that's a shift in the right direction. That's something,
Yeah.
right? So I think that we should care. Sometimes you have to exist within that paradigm to at least get some small semblance of progress. You can't just expect it to go from 0 to 100.
Yeah. No, and I'm glad, I'm a little relieved even to hear you, kinda take that stance,
Yeah, oh, yeah.
only because, like, when I was writing this interview and kinda thinking about these questions and coming to my own conclusions, I think I started to feel a little bit militant, 'cause I
Mhm.
do agree with you, and I do believe that a step in the right direction is a meaningful step
Yeah.
and that it doesn't need to be all or nothing.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I'm at a place of frustration right now. You know,
Yeah,
like
that's
you're,
fair.
yeah. I mean, you're talking about this maybe like softer idea of Christianity or of
Mhm.
some of these religious beliefs, and I guess I have to point out that there's that old truism that the road to atheism is littered with Bibles that have been read cover to cover. And I
Yeah.
think it's also fair to kind of point out that a lot of people in the church don't hold that like super dogmatic, literal, cover to cover biblical worldview. And I don't know if atheists choose to ignore that, because it definitely feels like we tend to believe that, okay, if you're going to say this book is real, then you have to be willing to defend everything in it.
Mhm.
And I guess what I'm asking is, if theists don't necessarily buy into everything in that holy book, is it still valid for society to hold them accountable for every word in that book?
Yeah, I think so, especially if you're and evangelizing it, which
Sure.
Christians tend to do. If you're proselytizing in an attempt to get other people to buy into it,
Even if you don't
then
believe in the whole book, if you're telling other people how great this book is,
right.
then yeah.
And I think that it would be like a form of ineptitude and negligence to try to convert somebody over to believing something you don't have a full understanding of,
Mm.
especially when that can propagate so much negative affect, like demonstrably so. It can propagate so much negative affect. So to that degree, I think we should care. Um, and also, I don't think it's epistemically sound or good for people to have beliefs that are pulpit bred as
Mm.
opposed to based on sound epistemic principles and their own attempts to acquire knowledge. Um,
If you say you believe the Bible, you should study the Bible, understand the
you
Bible,
should
and
understand what's
believe
in
the
it.
Bible and not be, just taking your marching orders from somebody interpreting it for you. Or
Yeah,
any belief system. I mean, is
right.
that kind of how you mean it?
Yeah, I think any belief system would be yeah, I would extend that to everything. I think people should
Sure.
base their beliefs on sound epistemic principles, and that should be a goal. And it shouldn't just be, leave people alone if they're not doing too much harm or whatever. I think ultimately it's fair to question how people come to their beliefs. And if you care about how you come to your beliefs, which most people probably do, um, them being held to a healthy level of scrutiny should be something that you welcome, especially if you believe that they're the ultimate truth.
Sure.
Like they should withstand that. And
Yeah. Well, and in a marketplace of ideas, I feel like that is kind of where the ACA lives, and that's sort of
mhm,
the philosophy that we all espouse. Like,
yeah,
what do you believe and why? And can we
why?
talk about it? And
Yeah.
if it can be destroyed by the truth, like all of these philosophies.
hmm
But in kind of day to day life, there is that challenge of how do I not proselytize? How do I not try and push my atheist agenda? How do I,
Right.
let other people have their beliefs while knowing in the back of my mind that you give money to an organization that, or knowing that you honor and worship a book that includes a lot of these incredibly dehumanizing aspects of, people like me, people in my community.
hmm
It's a I don't know. It's a difficult challenge that I think comes up in particular this time of year. Is all that fair to say?
I think that's totally fair to say. And I think that you have a unique perspective on it too, if you're part of the group of people that is so systemically and frequently harmed by the people who are propagating that belief system. So I think it's very easy to say when when there's no impact to you directly that, like leave well enough alone, you
Sure.
know,
Yeah.
that like it's not worth the fight.
Can't we all just get along? And yeah, you believe
Right.
what you believe. Sure.
Well, it's very much worth the fight if you're the person on the other end of the sword, right? Like that's being like
Yeah.
constantly held up to you. It's worth fighting because then you're not just picking a fight, you're fighting back. That's the difference. You're defending yourself
Mm-hmm.
at that point. If you're not in a position where you have to consistently feel like you're defending yourself, it's easy for you to say, "Well, I choose my battles," or it's easy for you to say, "Oh, let people believe whatever they want to believe," or yada yada yada, or call atheists or not even just atheists. There's Christians, deconverted and deconstructed, not deconverted, sorry, deconstructed Christians who are also in this sort of movement to sort of neuter the church when it comes to
Yeah.
their bigotry and their misogyny and their nationalism and their negative impact in general on overall society. So, yeah, I think that it's easy to say leave well enough alone when you're not the one that's being bothered by what they're doing. It's not impacting you.
Yeah.
So